We're pulling shards. We're pulling shards. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here on the free to pause account because we are going to be pulling some shards. The portal is glowing blue, and that means it is a 2x event for Ancients. And honestly, for any free to play, that is a great time to be pulling shards. So we're not going to pull every shard I have because I do want to save up a little bit for this next fusion. Because to be fair, a guaranteed legendary, even of moderate quality, is still a huge boost to this account. So I'm going to try to go for that. Plus, it gives me additional points I can use somewhere else as well. And the end result is if I end up not getting the fusion, well, it gives me a ton of fragments towards mod. It gives me some of the resources that way. And honestly, you get a ton of resources just from doing the tournament events anyway. So I'm planning on doing the fusion on this account, and so I definitely want to use every shard I have. But let's hop into some shard pullings. All right, so why is the 2x Ancient events one of the best times to pull on an early game in a free-to-play account? Well, we've got a double chance of getting epics. We have a double chance of getting legendaries. Epics are the lifeblood of early game accounts. They are easier to build than legendaries. They require a little less investment than legendaries to be able to book up, for example. And honestly, you need to fill out a roster, and because they are so much easier to get, again, 16 times the chance, you need them. They're very helpful. I have several factions I could use some help in. I could use some help in Shadowkin. I could use some help in Lizardmen. I could use some help in the Bannerlords. Honestly, there's several factions I could use some help in. Sometimes it's just a push over the top. I have 2 Faction Wars teams that are done now. I have finished High Elves and I have finished Undead. So honestly, any other faction getting some helpful epics would be absolutely amazing. But honestly, the ones I mentioned are probably the ones I'm in the most dire need of some kind of help in. But on top of that, we have a 10 times chance of landing this Faction Lord as well. So not that I expect to necessarily get a legendary during these shard pulls, but a Faction Lord would be absolutely amazing. And one of my better factions does happen to be the faction that he is in, which is the Sylvan Watchers. So hopefully I get a chance to actually talk about this dude, because hopefully I pull him. He is pretty amazing, and I think he'll be fun in this account. Honestly, I think he'd be fun in my main too. So, look for those videos for that shard pull sometime later. But we have 40 spaces available, and we are going to be pulling 40 shards. So I'm probably going to mix this up and start off with like 5 solo pulls, and then we will do a bunch of 10 pulls, and then I will do 5 solo pulls to finish it off. I would certainly love a solo pull legendary because that's always kind of fun. So let's start this out. Of course, as always, we do have Pepsi here. Pepsi is sadly not a sponsor, but think of all the money I could be making Pepsi for you sponsoring me. And on top of that, think of all the money you could be making from selling Pepsi to all these people in Raid Shadow Legends that are certainly willing to spend money. So with that said, we crack this puppy open. We get some prayers to RN Jesus. May he bless this account. Certainly could use any help we would look for, and we'll pull some 10 pulls. But we're starting off with 5 rares here. And hopefully we're not actually starting off with 5 rares. That would be bad. For the most part, there's not a lot of rares I'm really looking forward to. If I find a rare that I'm excited about, I will certainly talk about her. But Misericord is not a rare I'm excited for. So this is the 3rd. Judicator, he is a fake Templar. Need 2 more. Getting the dailies done. There's an epic. Bovo Sharphorn. I don't know if he's going to help my skinwalkers. So let's take a look at this dude. He's got an A1, does decrease speed for 2 turns on a 30%, bookable to 50% with a single attack. Not great. He's an attack-based damage dealer, but he's a support, so he doesn't do a lot of damage, most likely. A2 here attacks all enemies. That's not bad. Decreased crit rate and crit damage debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. This is the same buff that the new fusion brings, at about the same rate. But again, we've talked about with that fusion, not a great set of debuffs, unless this is something you need for the new hard faction wars, which is, to be fair, a possibility. If they make the waves, a better chance of doing crit, then this should not only be a useful defense. Right now, it turns a minimal chance of critting into a 0 chance of critting for most PvE content. And in PvE content, you're either going to have 100% max or you're not. So it's either going to matter not a lot or it's not going to matter at all. So, removes one random debuff from all allies. So he's a minor cleanse, then places 30% increased crit rate and increased crit damage on allies for 2 turns. That's not a horrible set of buffs, but it's a 4-turn cooldown, 6 hit buffs, and the cleanse. He's probably not going to fit in my Skinwalker's team, probably at all. I will certainly check and see. Maybe he's a little better than Gnarlhorn as far as just general utility is concerned, but Gnarlhorn's got the provokes, which actually make him very useful on the waves. And I've already got a cleanser in the form of the Rhino that we got earlier. Finally, heals an ally by 10% of their max HP when they're hit with a critical hit, except for he prevents critical hits with this skill. Yeah, I remember not being impressed with this champion, and every time I read his kit, I remember why I'm not impressed with him. Just not a great champion under any circumstances. So we've got one left before we start the 10 polls, so let's get going. Oop, another epic. Oh, it's the bad bear. Apparently this is the Skinwalker polls, so yay. I could use a little more Skinwalker love, so I'm not going to complain about Skinwalkers if we get the right ones, but this is not the right one. Block active skills, 10% chance, bookable to 30%. He's a defense-based damage dealer, but he doesn't hit very hard. AoE, decreased crit rate. We already talked about how that's not a particular thing, and he only does the decreased crit rate, not even the decreased crit damage, so he's even less useful than Bovos. Decrease the damage of all allies receive from critical hits by 15%. That's at least slightly more useful than the 10% heal when they get hit with critical. Still, he reduces the critical hit rate, and then he has something that's based off of critical hit. Fills the champion's turn meter by 5% when an enemy lands a normal, strong, or weak hit. This at least is that part of that is at least a usable passive. Basically, if they don't critical hit, he gets 5% turn meter when an enemy lands a hit. Of course, they ventilate on him or lands a hit. I don't know. And HP in battle is 25%. Again, not super excited about this dude. The advantage of him being a defense-based damage dealer as opposed to the support that the other one was is that he's actually going to do a little bit of damage, which doesn't suck, even if he's not going to do a ton of damage. But he's not particularly fast. He's not particularly tanky. He's just not a good champion. So, all right, we have 3 10 polls here. So let's get to 10 polling. Come on, epics. There's an epic that is a Catacomb Counselor. I do not need undead, so he is not particularly exciting for me. He's also not great. He's got a team up with 2 random allies and a single attack for ally attack. This is it teams up with 3 when you actually build it up a little bit. It's okay. Morag's is slightly stronger because I believe she put some debuffs out there and she gets an extra thing for killing somebody, but her kit just seems to be better. She's got a 3-time, one enemy attacks 3 times, heals the champion by 20% of the damage inflicted, and then there's a 50% chance of increasing 50% chance of placing increased attack on this champion for 2 turns and then attacks in it. Such a weird skill. He's okay. He's not great. He's probably very usable early on for ally attack when you're low on ally attackers. But the fact that we can now get Morag really early, Morag is just straight up better than this dude. So unless you're desperate for ally attackers, and to be fair, for Centranos, I could see him for the Ultra Endgame being a champion to have on hand when you're short of ally attackers. So from that end, he's capable, he's usable, he's just not great. There are definitely better champions out there as well. I already have a Petra, or Petrifa. So that was good. She's a good rare, just she's got poisons and decreased defense and poison sensitivity. Very good clan boss champion early on. Frozen Banshee style type of damage dealer. Overall, good champion, but not something I need at this point in the account. Would have been very good to have pulled a lot earlier. All right, let's get some epics. Umatagi, I don't remember if I like her or not. Ooh, Dur the Hungerer. That is actually what I needed on my demon spawn. Okay, I'm actually excited about Dur the Hungerer. This is actually good progress for this account. And I'll talk about him in a minute. First of all, Umatagi, I do need a refresher on her kit. Definitely one of the fun looking. There's a lot of weird rope bondage stuff maybe with the Shadowkin, but no, that's fine. if you're into that stuff. We don't kink shame here unless that's your kink. So, attacks one enemy 2 times, has an additional 20% chance of inflicting critical hits on this champion's under veil or perfect veil. Okay. Ignores 20%, attacks one enemy 2 times, ignores 20% of the target's defense. That's not bad, but it's a single attack still. Additional 20% chance of inflicting critical hits of the champion's under veil or perfect veil. Puts veil or perfect veil and a 30% increased buff on this champion, then fills their turn meter by 40%. Yeah, okay-ish single target damage dealer. Single target damage dealers are so hard to deal with. They're not great for most faction wars content other than the bosses, and that means you're only building this champion for the boss unless you have so much control of the waves that you can use her. I think I'd rather still use the Chani as a damage dealer in this faction. I don't see her replacing my duplicate Taragi that I have really basic gear on for the moment. So whenever this champion is attacked, completely blocks 1 hit, decreasing the incoming damage to 0, then counterattacks with a default skill. So they do keep themselves alive a little bit. When attacked by a boss, decrease the incoming damage by 50% instead before counterattacking. So they don't get the 100%, but they do get the counterattack still. That's not bad, and because that keeps them alive, that gives them a better chance at doing single target damage. So it's okay. Not a horrible champion, not great. Probably not one I'm going to invest a lot on this account. Dur the Hunger, on the other hand, is actually pretty solid. He's got these weird people on his pants for some reason. He was from, I believe, was he the Vlad fusion? He was in a fusion. He might have been the Vlad fusion. I remember he's one of the early fusions that I did. It was him, Thylesia, Demitha were 3 of the epics in that fusion, and I think the epic rat in Skinwalkers was the 4th one for that fusion, and I don't remember who that was for. I thought it was Vlad, but maybe it was somebody else. But he is a much needed reviver for the Demon Spawn. Revives 2 random allies with 50% HP and 50% turn meter at a 4-turn cooldown. It's an average revive. Maybe a little below average because it is 2 random, but it is 2 allies on a 4-turn cooldown. So from that perspective, it's not bad. Provides a reflect damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. That's not super exciting, but a 15% continuous heal on allies for 1 turn, and then heals all allies by 50% of their max HP. Now it is their max HP, which is not great, but he brings healing, revive, and reflect damage to Demon Spawn, which is really desperate for revivers outside of Duchess. So yeah, he might be the key to me being able to get through stage 21 with this team, because right now I can do okay with Tyrant and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm pretty sure I can put him in case kind of one of the stuff champions, probably Abyssal, although Abyssal's still not a bad champion. But if I replace Abyssal, who's currently my healer in that, or maybe I replace Fellhound, because Fellhound is just kind of okay. We'll see. Regardless, Dur is going to go in my Demon Spawn team and is going to help me get the faction done. He also has an AoE, not AoE, but a single target stun. That's a 40% chance. The big problem with this stun, not that it's not a good because it's an A1 stun, it's the fact that you have to build him with accuracy, and if he's your healer and reviver, you're probably more likely going to want to build him not only super fast, but you want to build him tanky with things like regeneration gear. So early on, you might struggle to get enough accuracy to land that stun, and that's okay. You might still land it randomly anyway. You never know. But it's an A1. He definitely will need books. This is on a 5-turn cooldown. It'll be rough. On a 3-turn cooldown, this becomes a very viable heal. This needs to go down to that 4-turn cooldown. The good news is 4 epic books outside of these, and he's good. 8 epic books if I get really unlucky. Still not bad. So I'm actually super stoked that I've got a Dur the Hunger. That's the type of epic I need on this account. So that's absolutely amazing. Let's get some more good epics. Maybe a legendary. Legendary will be really cool, Polarium, but I will take some really good epics. And we got scammed. So, to be fair, I think that's actually my first duplicate Kale. And since I've got I'm using a bunch of the rares, so that'll actually probably go in my Faction Guardians, because I think that'll actually be helpful. Ooh, that's a Soulbound Boyar. I actually don't think I've had a Soulbound Boyar yet. Soulbound Boyar is definitely worth grabbing. She is well known for this A1, and she has a 25% chance of inflicting a critical hit bonus. So you only need to build her with 75% crit rate if you want to do crit damage. You don't have to, but this is an all AoE, so she's great in stun gear. But the rest of her kit's actually really good too. Attacks 1 enemy enemy has a 25% chance of inflicting a critical hit and will ignore 75% of the target's defense. So again, you don't have to build her for damage, but if you do, this can actually smack pretty hard because you're ignoring 75% of the target's defense, which means this actually scales very well in the late game. And then finally, attacks one enemy, has an additional 25% chance of inflicting a critical hit, also has a 75% chance of fully depleting the target's turn meter, bookable to 100. So basically, she is kind of a mini Cold Heart in many ways, except for the AoE is on the A1, and she doesn't have the max HP hit, but she can do a good chunk of damage. And of course, she's not a void, so she's actually pretty easy to get. I've had a soul waiting for this champion. This champion is actually going to help my Faction Wars team quite a bit, which does not have a lot of damage. My Barbarians Faction War team doesn't have a lot of anything. So I'm certainly going to build her at least to 4-star, if not 5-star, for some Faction Wars content, and eventually she will be 6-star. She is worth stashing a couple of on your account. So Soulbound Voyeur, very, very good to get. So we got 5 left to pull, and yep, let's go. We've got these last 5. Let's get something cool. We are in Epic Mercy at this point in time, so we should start getting hopefully closer to at least a good Epic. Would love a Legendary. All right. Here by Colin. All the Sylvan Watchers are pretty good for the most part. There's a couple that are not great. And, oh, we got one more. Come on, Polarium, Pepsi, bring me a good champion. Well, I was complaining about how my barbarians are not great. Well, Tashada will help with that. She will probably get replaced by Syl almost immediately, but I'm not at Syl yet. In fact, I'm not even at 120 days on this account. So yeah, Tashada is a reviver. She got reworked, and so she has a single target revive with 3 turn cooldown to start, so that's not horrible. Revives an ally with 40% HP, 40% terminal, then heals all allies by 15% of their max HP. I don't know if she can do this without anybody dead, and if she can, then she brings a decent amount of healing even when nobody is dead, so that makes her better. And then attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 75% chance of placing weaken. Not bad, but again, as a reviver, probably not building her with a lot of accuracy. And she is a defense-based damage dealer, so there's that. And then attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing an increased defense buff on this champion for 2 turns. It's okay. It's not amazing. Honestly, it is probably better than some of the champions I have, and it gives me some healing. Right now, I've got a Skytouch Shaman, who's kind of the reviver healer in that team. I may still keep the Skytouch Shaman for a while because that block debuff can be good. The problem with Skytouch Shaman is she's really, really hard to rely on to do anything particularly good because she fears herself, so she regularly doesn't take her turn because of fear. And plus, she's also not booked, whereas this doesn't need a lot of books. She's also got a speed and faction crypts aura. So yeah, Tashada is probably going to find her way into my barbarian team at the least. She is not amazing. I have better revivers. I have better champions in every other aspect, but she'll bring me some healing in a faction that I'm really kind of struggling with. So, hey, and looks like we still have, do we have room for one more? We do not have room for any more. All right, so we're done. We got some help here. I cannot complain too much. I'm not going to say this was the most amazing shard pull session for the free-to-play, but you know, we've got, because I can say here, I can not epic, we're looking here. We can put myself a extra resistance and accuracy. That's not a lot of extra accuracy, but you know what? Every little bit of extra accuracy can help on an early game account. Generally, I don't do the rare faction guardians, but Dark Elves has some of the best rares in the game. Particularly, you're going to use multiple Cold Hearts, you're going to use multiple Painkeepers in a lot of accounts, and then Kale is just kind of such a good rare champion that it's nice to have 1 or 2 of him. So Dark Elves is one of the ones I do recommend keeping some of those faction guardians with. Other ones that might be good would include possibly High Elves, because Apothecary and Reliquary Tender could be very good, as well as Knights Revs, maybe because of Renegade, but again, Renegade can fall off eventually in the game. Undead, maybe with Frozen Banshee, possibly. But honestly, Dark Elves is probably the faction to keep rare guardians with. Early on, maybe it might be okay, but honestly, I think most accounts are actually better off using them as chickens, because you're better off getting better champions that you're using out of them than simply having rares that are slightly better when you're not using a lot of the rares, and the rares will fall off very quickly. So, hey, there we go. What do you think? Did I get anything particularly exciting to you guys? You guys hopefully have had some better luck on your accounts. I'm actually pretty excited because I got some usable champions that don't necessarily require amazing investment, but will help transform this account and help me in places I need the help. So that's really all you can ask for on a free-to-play, and that's how you get progress. So, hey, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing. Have some great luck this weekend pulling some shards. And until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.